A company hired me to break into their environment. This wasn't just to run a scan or do a checklisted pen test. They wanted me to actually attempt and reach the stuff that would ruin their entire week if an attacker got access to. So think about things like their internal network, their databases, customer data, and so on. Most of this work, though, usually is a lot of research. You map out the entire app, find every place that it takes input, and then you look for that one door that is not locked, as well as everyone assumes. So in this case, that door was a file upload, especially one that converts whatever you send it into another file format. And I'm going to show you all of that, plus how AI does that tedious half of the research for me. But first, here is where this one ended. The whole customer database just by uploading a single file. Real quick though, before we get into this, this is a sponsored video by Teleport, and I actually think what they do is worth explaining. Teleport is how companies give their engineers access to their infrastructure, their servers, their database, their Kubernetes clusters, without handing out any SSH keys, any VPN logins, or sharing credentials. So instead of a permanent key sitting on someone's laptop, you log in as yourself with a passkey, and Teleport hands you a short-lived certificate that expires on its own. Their whole idea is that identity is the perimeter, access is tied to who you are, not the key that anyone can find and reuse. And here's why they've been sponsoring this video, because they're going to actually allow me to break into a company. So I built this entire app where you can watch me break in, and then Teleport is going to stop me. I am going to run the same exact attack twice, once against the environment the way I found it, where it wins and we get to get access, and then one with Teleport in place where the identical attack just dies. So it's just me doing the both of them, same steps, two very different endings, but more on that later. So let's talk about what we're actually looking at. This company is some sort of a media company that allows you to do proofing. It is a print studio, so the designers and clients upload their artwork, and the site generates a proof for sign-off. So think about it as uploading a file. It does some stuff to it. You have to approve it. That stuff that happens in the background is what we want to do. But in this case, we were hitting their staging instance, and I want to plant something because it is the whole point of this video. Most breaches aren't clever after the first step. The first bug gets you into the door. Everything after that is just standing credentials lying around on a network that trusts anything already inside of it. So hold on to that. Now, I said the way in was a file upload. So let me tell you why those are so good. When a site lets you upload a file and then does something to it, think about it resizing it, rendering the proof, turning it into a PDF, it is running your file through some heavy piece of software on their backend. And that software usually tends to have some vulnerabilities. The trick is knowing which one. That used to be hours of manual research. Now I let AI handle all of that. I pointed to the exact software that I think is doing the conversion, or I assume that it's doing the conversion, and I asked for it to show me all the vulnerabilities, and then I skimmed right through it, and within minutes I have my candidates. But it's a lot more work than that, but instead of just telling you, let me show you instead. So originally what I did for this pen test was I ran into ChatGPT and just simply asked it, list any known RCEs or local file vulnerabilities that affect anything that converts an SVG to a PNG JPEG PDF, or EPS, which is a high resolution file, to a PDF PNG JPEG, for Ghostscript, because that seems to be usually the issue with all these file uploads and image renderers. And I'm asking it to do it the last 3 years, and then I'm asking it also to just give me those with a public or known POC that are preferred, and we can get a list easily just like that. It's just giving us all of these. And actually the one that I wanted is, I believe this one right here was the one that I ended up using. But anyways, it does that, and it gives us a good understanding of how it works, what they do, and we just start hunting for these, right? You can go and read the write-up, see if you can recreate the POC, and maybe leverage ChatGPT or something similar to do it for you. But instead, I wanted something clever this time for this video, because I also want you to be able to do this on your own and going through Claude. And I'm actually going to use the UI for it, or the desktop app for it, so it's easier to watch for the video. But I just pretty much asked it, hey, can you do the same thing? But instead of just looking for them and indexing them, I want you to actually look for each of those POCs. Do not run them on my system, but I want you to generate a folder and then show me in each folder how does it work. And if you have a final POC, I want you to also include it in there, and you can see that it has done 14 by impact. So if I go into my folder here and I look at all of the different files that I have, we can see all these POCs now exist, and we can just create POCs for each of these and test them. Typically though, the good thing for me to do is, as these drop, I usually try to create a POC for them and put them into a folder and have it for all my bug bounty and pen testing. And honestly, it is a really good practice to get into and just create them as they drop. But you can run this whole thing every few months or every few years, and get all the POCs you need, and just have them on your box thanks to AI. But this isn't where the hacking happens. Let me show you where the bug lives and how we exploit it and how the story unfolds. So now let's take a look at our application. This is just a normal application that allows us to upload files and it would do some proofing. And if you've ever done any print media, you know that this is a big part of their entire ecosystem. And the thing that is interesting is being able to find flaws in that conversion. So a lot of things that I tried originally was, could I have this, SVG that I can upload? Was there an SSRF in there? Doing just simple XML within the SVG, sending more files, see if we can bypass the file upload and things like that. And then eventually I was like, you know what, screw it. They are specifically telling me, hey, upload EPS, PS, PDF, AI, and JPEG files, right? So they're asking for specific ones. And if I just upload this without an RCE, it would say that, hey, we're going to just send you a proof shortly. And usually those proofs, when it gets emailed to you, it is a PDF. So I know there's a conversion happening. The SVG tricks that I knew all with the SSRFs and PDF renderers didn't work. So the conversion was interesting. And that's why I did all that research around just indexing all the known CVEs and trying the POCs. So because they're outlining an EPS file, I don't have to worry about anything, right? All I had to do was go one by one through all those CVEs, create files, whether it's an EPS, whether it's a PDF, whether it's a JPEG, or it's a PNG. Any of those file formats that worked, all I had to do was create them and start one by one sending them through this. The key thing here was that every single one of these was a different payload. So sometimes it was maybe a RC callback for me so I can get shell. Some of them are local file reads. Some of them are not even going to work, right? But now let's just assume that we have what we need right here and we're just uploading all of them. And eventually, if it does work, we get a shell, we get into this application, and we have gained our initial access. So the whole thing here was testing out everything we can think of when it comes down to the PDF itself. And if you've seen any of my content, you know how much I love hacking on PDFs, whether it was SSRFs, whether it's finding XSS within them, playing with conversions, uploading logos, things of that nature. And I've just gotten a really good grip of how all this works. So the first 10 to 15 hours of it was just automating all this, testing every single one of these entry points. And like I showed earlier, getting a shell so we can get in. But this is not exactly the cleanest way or the best thing that we can do. We have shell, but we don't have database access. We don't know what else we can do. And this is where things actually get really interesting. So within my search, when I was actually looking at this entire box, we came across a folder. And again, these folder names are all imaginary here, even though the past may not make sense. And if we go into backups, for example, let me that one more time, CD backups. We saw that there was a backup or a bunch of backups in there that existed. The key thing with backups is that it's a gold mine for a couple of different reasons, especially if you're doing an engagement. One is if the backup has access to the entire source code, then that just gives you the entire application that you can just rip apart and find vulnerabilities, whether it's a SQL injection, whether it's you're looking for a RCE, SSRF, maybe some XSS, on-auth endpoints, and everything else, right? And it's a good place to start. It's a great place actually because it helps you with that pen test and you just find a lot of better bugs and you get massive coverage. But the key thing here wasn't what the backup did, is also going further and seeing if there's any hard-coded credentials. Because if there is, for example, some sort of a database that has access to and has a configuration file for it, then we can just extract that data and see if it's, for example, MySQL or MariaDB or something like that, and then connecting to it directly and just, seeing if we can access the database and dumping data, which is the ultimate goal of all these engagements, showing the maximum impact, especially as someone who's been doing bug bounties for years. And that's all I care about, is getting the maximum impact and making sure both the clients or bug bounty programs are happy with my reports. So after going through a dozen files, eventually I found this, and I'm so glad I always do a ls-la because it is easy to miss this .ssh folder. And one of those folders was actually an entire home directory folder. I don't know why they had that backed up on their staging machine, but it gave us a good foothold. I can actually just use that key and authenticate myself to that box. Again, this is a test box. I'm doing it with Docker. The routing has been different for the ports, but essentially I can just drop into this machine and get access to it. The key thing to understand about SSH keys isn't that it gives us an access to this box alone. It is also extend that entire attack surface to anything else that key could be authorized to. So for example, if it's a specific employee's authorized keys and I can just use that to authenticate to multiple machines, then we're just moving around the network and just hitting every single machine that has SSH open, or maybe this box itself has access to more other machines that we can hit internally and just SSH into them. And that's kind of why the point of this video is one key just gives you access to everything else within that network. So, and the last bit of it with this pen test was just finding a way to get access to the credentials. And I'm going to show you, if you've done a lot of these like try hack me's, hack the box, or even our hacking hub machines, you know that the key thing is knowing how to look for information. A lot of times we want to look for passwords, we want to look for usernames, seeing what other configuration files are in there. So we're just doing a find here, and we're looking for things like env, cnf, config, and so on. And we're looking to see what comes up. And eventually we see there is a file right here that allows us to read a config file. Again, these are all fake to show you what the story was behind this pen test. And eventually you can just log into the MySQL and hit the host with the username and password that was leaked in there, and just do a select from the customers. Obviously not that simple, but to make this video short, this is kind of what the gist of it was. So far we got our shell, we got our key, we have access to almost anything that we want with the database. And I kind of want to show you what the other side would be when Teleport is in charge, and it kind of takes away that one key access to everything away. But for that to work, we got to do a couple more things, and we're going to rebuild this image and put Teleport within our build and show you kind of how that looks like. So let me just jump in really quick. And just to make everything easier, I've just put this build SSH together. It's going to just rebuild our entire image. It's going to use Teleport once it is built. It's going to use docker compose exec and actually just run Teleport to see what node has access to. Then it's going to add us a demo user using Teleport user add demo with the access logins as root, so we can access that application with SSH as root. And then it's going to give us this setup link that we can go to and set up our entire user for us to be able to connect to our SSH. So if we go to Teleport here, we can easily just set a password. I'm going to just set a fake password for this, and we're going to just do a MFA method with our passkey created, and then just call this my personal web auth device, for example, right? And once we're set up, it's going to go to our cluster, and this is what Teleport looks like. It allows you to either add your new resources. We can look at all the other different functionalities, like our instance inventory, for example. If we have things like that, our identity governance and our audits, and see what logs are existed. There you can see some of the stuff that I've been working on today with all of these different things. But the cool thing is also that we can just click connect and log in as root, for example, here, and we're back into our machine that we had earlier, right? So if nothing works and we really want to get access to it, we have that from here as well. But what we want to try and do next is I want to show you what it looks like when I SSH into that box. Now, again, using the same method, it says public key denied. So the SSH key does no longer work, even though it was working earlier. We're going to use Teleport here and tell it that we want to log in. And we're just going to use an insecure because I'm using my local host and I don't have any cert set up. Our user is demo, and then MFA mode is auto, so it can auto detect what it needs. It is going to automatically log us in because I think I already had my key in there, my finger on there, that it worked. Even if we did it, we can log out and do it again if needed. But you can see now that we are able to log into this profile. We're logged in as demo. This is the cluster name for it. We have access role, and our login is going to be root. Kubernetes is enabled if we need it. And you can see this is valid until this time. So this is going to be what it would be valid for the next 12 hours to do whatever we needed to. We can always see, change these and modify it and things like that. But now we're just going to do SSH and tell it that this is the box that I want to SSH into. And you can see that we're back and actually able to log in to this server using terminal TSH instead of just doing a good old SSH, which is cool because it just prevents all this misuse and reuse of keys, which was the entire issue with our pen test. So there you have it. That was the entire process around the pen test, how I got in and how you can prevent it. If you've actually enjoyed watching this video, do me a favor and drop me a comment. Let me know. Make sure you go check out our sponsor, Teleport. I will link him down below. You can go right here. There'll be a link. You can go check out their product. Honestly, if you don't have to even use it as a developer, I'm switching all of my boxes to be managed to Teleport because it's just easier to manage everything and I don't have to worry about my boxes getting owned. And I have that, peace of mind using their software. So actually, since they reached out to me, I've looked into it. It seems like a good solution and I have genuinely enjoyed it. So if you have also, make sure you go check them out. All right, that's it. Do me a favor, hit that like, hit that subscribe button, become a Nahomi, and I will see you all in next week's video. Peace.